Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
And what is up, you guys? Welcome back to the first edition, really, welcome in to the first edition of Tony Metro Live here in the off season. Yes, that's right, the winter editions here of Tony Metro Live. My first live stream that I have done since the Mets were unceremoniously bounced from the playoff picture. Just awful, as we all know, just absolutely terrible. But we are not going to stop here on the channel. We are going to continue to deliver Mets offseason news, rumors, have discussions, all of that kind of stuff. And that is exactly what we are going to do here tonight. As the title says and the thumbnail, Ace Hunting the Mets. Starting rotation, of course, was a huge reason why they did not make the playoffs in 2025. So today we're going to talk about 5 starting pitchers that the Mets should target in the winter to improve that said starting rotation. But first, some good news. I don't know if you guys are watching, but over here to my left, I have on Game 2 of the National League Division Series between who but the Los Angeles Dodgers and the Philadelphia Phillies. And I am very pleased to announce that the Dodgers just had a 4-run inning in the 7th, while the Phillies have just 1 hit today. So Red October might be coming to an end very, very quickly. A short Red October, if you will. So that is good news, and we could chat about that game. But really, anything you guys want to talk about, again, we're going to continue doing this in the off season. This is kind of a test run right here, but the hope is to be doing this at least 2, maybe 3 times a week, live streams. And then, of course, if there is any news from the Mets here in the off season as far as signings, trades, or any other just relevant topics, we're going to talk about it live here on the channel. So if you're not already, be sure to subscribe for your daily Mets content here on Tony Metro. Leave this video a like. Really appreciate that from you guys. And you can follow me on all the other platforms where I also post daily Mets content. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Links to all of those are down in the description of this video below. If you can't tell, I'm a little bit rusty, okay? It's been almost 2 weeks since my last live stream, and we have the New York Mets falling out of the playoff race to thank for that. Armand, what is up? Hey, Tony, he says, how you doing, Armand? Good to see you, man. I hope you're doing well. Mets 101. Hi, Tony. Go Mets. What's up, Mets 101? I hope you're doing well also, bro. Good to have you guys in here. So today's topic, and guys, feel free to sound off about anything in the chat. It does not have to be related to this. We could talk this Phillies-Dodgers game. We could talk anything MLB, baseball related. But the topic of this video is the Mets looking to improve the starting rotation. And we know that was a huge, huge problem for the Mets and a big reason why they missed the playoffs in 2025. It kind of was a few different areas that they just didn't have it. So they, of course, start the year, first 2 months, setting records. Going months without giving home runs up, at Citi Field, setting all kinds of different historic record-breaking things. And it all slowly crumbled apart, and for varying reasons. The first reason was because of injury. And a lot of people want to say that the Mets rotation just got injured and it couldn't hold up. And that was definitely part of it, no doubt. You lose Griffin Canning to the Achilles tear. You lose Tyler McGill for whatever he was worth. Kodai Senga goes down with a hamstring injury. And obviously, Sean Manaea begins the season on the injured list, doesn't finally make his debut until 1 day before the All-Star break. So, yeah, injury was definitely a part of it. But let's be honest about it. This rotation was not built to last a full 162-game season. And even if it did, results may vary. And they absolutely did vary. You have to also realize that they put Clay Holmes, converting him from a reliever into a starter in the middle of this rotation with the hopes that he might be a number 3. And I guess when you look at Clay Holmes' final numbers for the season, he definitely did pitch like a 3. But the way he got there was a little unconventional. It was really impressive up until June when he got pulled after the 5th inning in that start against the Tampa Bay Rays. I think the line of demarcation in this season really was that game, because what happened, of course, we know the bullpen came in, they gave up a ton of runs, and after that, the Mets just continued to spiral. I'm not saying that's the one specific reason why the Mets blew it this in the second half, but that just seems like the mark of the turning point in this season. So you had the Clay Holmes situation where he was up and down and mostly down there in the second half. You had Kodai Senga pitching out of his mind before the injury. And then when he came back, he kind of returned to the norm. Not to say he's a 5+ ERA guy, but in the end, his ERA is right around 3.5, 4 for the season. That's probably where he's going to sit. Maybe 2.5, somewhere in that area. So it was regression to the norm for a lot of these guys. It was injury, and it was just a rotation not built well enough. So here are a couple of names that I think the Mets should target here in the offseason if they want to improve this rotation. We obviously know that Nolan McLean is going to be somebody that is probably featured in this rotation. Brandon Sproat showed us a little bit in his 4 MLB starts that really impressed me. I could see him maybe taking that 4th slot in the rotation, but it's all going to depend on how they navigate the rest of this winter in terms of free agents, trades, and all of that stuff. So let's get into it. First, let me get back to the chat over here. Daniel Weiss says, Luzardo or Snell available? That would be nice, right? Luzardo and Snell going toe-to-toe for the first 6 innings of this game. Luzardo, though, back-to-back hits in the 6th inning, and the Dodgers with a 4-run burst, and they lead this one 4-0 in the 7th. Love to see it. Oh, boy, that Red October is almost over already. Before they could even get a W on the board, I have got my receipts ready. Don't you worry. I have got my receipts ready for the Philly fans that were trolling me here on my channel, on my TikTok, on Twitter. We are going to unleash the beast on them. But yeah, if they were available, my goodness, that would be nice. No, Blake Snell obviously is not. He had just signed with the Dodgers last year, and then Luzardo was still going to be with the Phillies. So unfortunately, they will not be available. Armand, I have a suggestion for pitching coach. His name is Oscar Marin. He was the Pirates pitching coach last year. Pirates team ERA 3.76, ranked 3rd in the NL and 7th in Major League Baseball. Not bad. I like it. Okay, so interesting. I have not heard of him before. The one thing I will say without looking into any of the details is that they also have Paul Skeens, who has a sub-2 ERA, and that is obviously going to significantly lower the team earned run average as well. So if you take Paul Skeens out of that, I do wonder what the numbers would look like for the Pirates, but not a bad suggestion at all, Armand. I will look more into Oscar Marin as a potential pitching coach for the Mets in the future. Let's see. Mets 101 also get Manny Ramirez. Yeah, so you guys may have seen my video today, and obviously articles that came out this week about Manny Ramirez, one of the primo all-time home run sluggers in Major League Baseball history, saying that he would like to become a hitting coach. He just needs an opportunity, and well, the Mets have an opportunity. And as we know, the Mets so often in the early 2000s were linked to Manny when he was a member of the Red Sox. Tons of trade rumors at the deadline during the offseason. It seemed every time from my ages 10 to 14 before he eventually got traded to the Dodgers, it was Manny Ramirez is going to the Mets. Manny's going to be a Met, and it just never happened. But maybe finally we get him in the orange and blue as a hitting coach. Explosive diarrhea. I miss Jeff Ulbrich. Oh my God. Who would have thought we'd ever be uttering those words? We're talking Jets football here real quick. I never could have imagined that the Jets could look any worse than how they looked last year under Jeff Ulbrich after taking over for Robert Saleh. But my goodness, the New York Jets have outjets themselves. 0-5 to start Aaron Glenn's coaching tenure with the team. First Jets coach to start 0-5. Not even Rich Kotite, not even Adam Gase, not any of the retread, absolutely horrific coaches in the history of this woebegone franchise have ever started 0-5, and here we are. You thought it was bad with the Mets collapsing at the end of the year, and then you get to watch Jets football here in the fall and the winter. My goodness, what a life we live, huh? Explosive, terrible, just absolutely brutal. I did not go live last game of the season, Mets, because I just had other things I had to take care of that day, unfortunately, family obligations. So I apologize. I wish I did. It was obviously horrific. The Mets were disgusting and awful, but hopefully that is going to change here with a good offseason, and it does begin with the starting pitching. So the thumbnail here says Ace Hunting, and you can see that I have Dylan Cease, I have Joe Ryan, and I have Ranger Suarez. Now, look, would I define any of those 3 guys as aces? Probably not. No. But we need a guy that the Mets can insert as the number 2, a stabilizer in this rotation. I'm not ready to say that Nolan McLean is going to be the ace of this rotation. I do think that he has the potential to be. We saw so much great stuff from him, but we also saw a game where he was gifted a pretty big lead against Chicago and gave up 4 home runs or 3 home runs. And that game got a little too close for comfort with them in the middle of a pennant chase. So while I like McLean, it was only his rookie year. It was the first time that any of these big leaguers have seen him. Let's see how he adjusts, or rather the league will adjust to him on the mound moving forward. So I love McLean. I think he's going to be excellent. I could see him being an ace, but I'm not going to outright declare it at this moment. But that being said, what the Mets most assuredly need here in the offseason is a number 2, a dependable innings eater, because they simply did not get that from really anybody. I mean, it was David Peterson in the first half of the season where he was going out there and every single time he took the ball, it seemed he'd go at a minimum 6, sometimes even 7 innings. Don't forget the 8-inning performances, a complete game shutout against the Nationals. Unfortunately, as we know, his season completely flipped on its head there by August. So the Mets are going to need one of those guys, and that's the role I think that each of these 5 guys can fill, plus a bonus who I think could fit that ace narrative, but I just don't think it's super realistic. So let's get into it. I'm going to share my screen over here with you guys. Armand says, thank God hockey starts tomorrow. I wish I had a hockey team, but I'm going to be honest, I'd probably just be in even more pain if I was a fan of hockey. So fortunately, I at least get a break from that. But let's take a look at it, guys. These are the free agent starting pitchers entering this offseason. So some of these guys may get a qualifying offer and accept it. Some of these guys may get traded. Or I'm sorry, not traded. They might have a club option or a mutual or a player option. So we don't know exactly who is going to be a free agent, but this gives us a pretty good understanding of who will be. So off the top of the heap here, Jordan Montgomery, Nick Martinez, Chris Bassett, Lucas Giolito, those are the bargain bin kind of guys that I am not interested in. And if you listen to David Stearns' post-mortem press conference after the Mets were bounced out of playoff contention, it sounds like he gets it now. It sounds like he has heard the messages from fans and from the media loud and clear. This is not Milwaukee. You cannot continue to shop at Ross. Nothing wrong with Ross. I love that place. You will find some nice clothes in there from time to time, but you can't shop there all the time if you want to be a World Series champion. So those are the kinds of guys that I hope the Mets avoid this offseason. There's nothing wrong with taking a flyer on one of these guys to be a depth piece, to maybe be a fifth guy in the rotation kind of innings eater. But these are not the kinds of guys that you can sign in the hopes of turning their season around, or rather their career from the previous season, and becoming a middle or front of the rotation guy the way the Mets have tried to do over the past 2 seasons. So let's start with my number 1 pick here, and that is someone that a lot of people have talked about here in the offseason and even at the deadline as he was nearly traded, and that is Minnesota Twins right-hander Joe Ryan. Joe Ryan has been a model of consistency for the Twins since getting called up. I believe it was in 2021 when he made his debut, and really not the most inspiring guy, not the most dominant guy, but he is going to go out there. He's going to give you innings. He is going to give you quality starts, and he's got 2 years of control. He is also the youngest of all of the pitchers that we are going to discuss here tonight. So definitely something that works in his favor. 2 more years of control. Plus, he's 29 years old. That is, again, younger than any of the other guys that we are going to mention here. So Joe Ryan, overall for his career, with a 3.42 earned run average, or I'm sorry, a 3.79 earned run average over 114 starts. And then this most recent season, 30 starts and a 3.42 earned run average. So actually the best, or I'm sorry, even better than what he has done for his career averages, and actually was his best career season. Had a 4.5 WAR this year with Minnesota. So this is a guy that is obviously getting better and better. And like I said, teams were very interested interested in him at the trade deadline. The asking price was supposedly too high for him for other teams to engage with the Twins. But now here in the offseason, it seems like Minnesota is going to be ripe for the picking. I mean, just another awful season for them where they are going nowhere. They were trying to sell off everything that they could this past summer and just couldn't unload enough or everything. So I could see him being traded in the offseason, and this is the kind of dependable arm I would love to see the Mets pursue. The question is going to be, is Stearns interested in doing that? Is Stearns willing to trade again from the farm system after just trading, 11, 12, maybe 13 prospects here at the trade deadline? Those didn't work out so well, as we know. So that is something that I'm a little wary about. I don't know how he would feel about continuing to go into that farm system. We know that really everything he traded at the deadline were not pieces that he has selected. He's obviously only had now 2 drafts, but it was mostly pieces that were picked from the former GMs over the past couple of seasons. So still, you want to have the depth in the farm. There's got to be a couple pieces, even if he didn't select them in the draft or acquire them, that he does like. So I would be interested to see how willing David Stearns is to make a trade and spend more of the assets that the Mets have down on their farm system. Let me go over to the chat really quick. Armand, Tyreek Skubal will be heading into his last year of control. I don't believe the Tigers ownership will extend him, and Stearns should make the call and an offer they can't refuse. Now, that is a very interesting one. So, you know what? Quickly, without getting too off the beaten track here, let me take a look at Tyreek Skubal. And we obviously know, he's an ace. He is clearly one of the best, if not the best pitcher in Major League Baseball. Let's just say the American League, because you got to give it to Paul Skeens otherwise, right? But Skubal is 28 years old. He will be 29 in not too long from now, actually, it looks like. Where is his birthday? Why can't I find it? Come on. November. So in about a month, he will turn 29. So obviously the numbers speak for themselves. 2.21 ERA, over 31 starts this year for his career, a 3.08 ERA. For the Cy Young winner last year, I don't know where he stands as far as American League earned run average this season, but I would assume he is going to contend, if not win it again in back-to-back seasons here. I don't think it's going to happen, if I'm being honest with you. I think that the Mets are just not going to trade for a rental like him that they then also have to spend a significant amount of money on to sign. I love the idea. I love the thought of the Mets getting that frontline ace starting pitcher. I really think it's important these days. I mean, look what's happening in the playoffs. Like, usually it is bullpen, but right now it's been dominated by starting pitching. I mean, look what Savage did yesterday for the Blue Jays. Look what Schlittler did for the Yankees a couple days ago in an elimination game against the Red Sox. Look what Blake Snell and Jesus Luzardo just did here tonight in Game 2 of the NLDS. So having a starting pitcher, a dominant ace starting like pitcher at the top of your rotation is important, but I just don't see David Stearns having it in his blood to not only have to trade significant prospect capital to acquire a pitcher like that, but then also have to try and re-sign him for the season or for the future. So I don't know if it's going to happen. Again, I think it's too rich for David Stearns' blood. So as much as I would love the idea and thought of it, I actually think the fact that he doesn't have any more years of control works against the Mets in this particular situation with Skubal. But not a bad recommendation at all from you there. Let's go and take a look at Joe Ryan's StatCast. There it is. I was checking to see what his arbitration situation is. So Joe Ryan is expected to get $5.6 million in arbitration this year. Like I said, he has 2 more years of control. Obviously, look, he's not as good as Tyreek Skubal. We know that. But I do imagine that he's going to be more in the sphere of what Stearns is willing to trade for to acquire. Number one, he is not going to command a contract right away like Skubal will. Number two, he has those 2 years of control. He's obviously not as good, but he is going to be someone that is dependable and can eat up innings. And I'm actually showing you Dylan Cease when I meant to go show you Joe Ryan's StatCast. So fastball run value, I mean, it's one of the best in the league. 93rd percentile, that's worth 15. I don't know how I could possibly articulate that for you guys or how I could calculate it for you. All I know is 93rd percentile, that's pretty good. Red numbers on this screen, equal good. That's basically how I try to analyze these here for you guys. Expected earned run average was 3.47. So, basically taking away park factors, defense behind him, also just based on his hitting. So really impressive there. That's in the 73rd percentile. Expected batting average in the 83rd percentile as well at 218. His K percentage really, really strong and healthy at 28.2, and the walk percentage really strong as well at 5.7. An extension for whatever that's worth, how far he's reaching out to the plate from the mound on his delivery in the 80th percentile. So look, these are all stats for nerds, as we like to call them, but he's got a nice little 6-pitch mix: the 4-seamer, sweeper, slider, sinker, splitter, and a curveball. Mixes all of them in really well. Obviously, the 4-seamer is his bread and butter to set things up, and then has a bunch of different pitches that work to each side of the plate. If you've watched him pitch, then you would probably come away pretty impressed with him. I don't think, again, he's a frontline ace and the most dominant pitcher I've ever seen, but he is a guy that I'd feel really comfortable inserting in as the number 2 in this Mets rotation. Because if you remember what Stearns said in that post-mortem press conference after the Mets were eliminated from the playoffs on that Sunday, it would be foolish. That was the actual word that Stearns used. It would be foolish to expect to get 30 starts from Kodai Senga next year. You just have to accept it for what it is. Kodai Senga is damaged goods. I love Kodai. I hope he has a bounce back next year if he is in a Mets uniform. But am I expecting it? Not very much. There are just too many factors working against the guy. He is on the wrong side of 30. He had a relatively long career in Japan in the professional league there. So he's no young buck by any means. There is some wear and tear on that arm and on that body. And number 2, the thing that I think maybe makes me most irritated about it is his need for the 6-man rotation and how difficult that can make things on the Mets' entire starting pitching rotation. The entire Mets roster having to change all of those different machinations to accommodate Kodai Senga. So as much as I love him, don't know if we could depend on him. And honestly, if there is a trade available that does help improve this team in other areas, I would not be opposed to hearing it out. But that is where Joe Ryan slots in. This is where we're talking Nolan McLean. If he continues to ascend that the way that we were hoping at the top of the rotation with Joe Ryan behind him, you hope that you're going to get a bounce back from David Peterson. And then you've got Clay Holmes, and you got to figure out the rest from there. So definitely someone that I'd be interested in. Let me go to the chat as Gabe Kapler, Max Kepler, the most overrated baseball player I've ever seen, hits a triple, but it doesn't matter. It's 4-0 Dodgers. There's an out in the 8th. The Phillies and their fans are about to go home crying, and I cannot wait. Let's see. Kev Chada, Stearns has a track record of bad trades. I'd prefer just sign free agents, Gallen, Woodruff, or Bassett. Yeah, no, I hear that. I think Gallen is going to be an interesting one, and I actually am going to talk about him here. So very good on you there, Kev Chada. Armand, the O's traded shortstop Joey Ortiz, left-handed pitcher DL Hall, and a 2024 competitive bounce round, a draft pick to the Brewers for Corbin Burns. Burns was heading into the last year of control. Okay, so we know Joey Ortiz because he killed the Mets with that grand slam in that one game, right? But yeah, that is not a significant return by any means. That was something that if you put it into the Mets equivalent, that I absolutely would do. I would hope that David Stearns would too, but until I see the actual names on paper of who the Mets would be sending back in that trade, it is hard for me to agree to. But we are also talking about a guy that is 28. Corbin Burns, I think, was a little bit older than Skubal is right now, as he is about to hit free agency. Maybe not by much, but I don't know. I think that the Tigers, obviously being in the ALDS, and again, this is all pendant on if the Tigers are even actually going to sell off on Skubal, or if maybe they finally, for once, pony up some money. Coming off a playoff series, could you imagine trading the back-to-back Cy Young winner? I mean, I guess so, because they're the Detroit Tigers and they don't spend a whole lot. But if they do, I would expect that they're going to command a little bit more than that. I could be wrong, but that is a very good point by you, Armand. The Burns trade could be used as an outline of what it might take to get Skubal. Absolutely, 100%. And again, I think it would probably cost a little bit more because of age, because it looks like he's going to be coming off of back-to-back Cy Youngs, and because the fact that the Tigers were just in the ALDS, or are currently in the ALDS, and who knows, their story is not yet finished. But similarities to the Brewers as well. They're always coming off of playoffs. run, and they traded Corbin Burns after that as well. So it is definitely possible. Kev Chada, Stearns devalued Senga even more by speaking little of him. That's just a dumb GM philosophy, 100%. That is a great point, Kev Chada. Yes, he did not speak very glowingly about Kodai Senga, which obviously, there's really not a whole lot of great to say about Kodai Senga after he virtually missed the final month of the season, did not perform well in his AAA rehab starts, and then he just never could get back from AAA. So there wasn't a lot of good to say about Senga, but you also don't want to disparage him and lower his trade value. You are 100% on the mark there, Kev Chada. Best not saying anything at all. Best saying we're hoping he's going to be a part of our rotation next year. We will see what happens as the offseason goes along. Boom. Next question. That is exactly how Stearns should have answered any questions about Kodai Senga, instead of saying it would be foolish, literally the words he used, foolish, to expect 30 starts from Kodai Senga next season. But I do like the idea of Joe Ryan. I am very interested in him, and that'll bring me to the next guy that the Mets should target. This guy is actually a free agent, and that is someone we are also very familiar with, Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease, we know, has pitched with the Padres now here for the last 2 years. This season definitely was not his best. In fact, it was actually his worst. This year finished with a 4.55 ERA, but the dude is a workhorse, goes out there every 5 days. 168 innings this year, over 32 starts. The numbers, they were not pretty. We know that. He ended up having that 4.55 ERA and an ERA plus of where is it? This stupid mic's in my head, in my face. ERA plus of 94. So look, it wasn't pretty by any means. The whip, 1.32, just absolutely brutal. You don't want to see that. Really, really tough. But this is a guy that finished as the runner-up as Cy Young in 2022, that finished 4th in the Cy Young voting last season, finished MVP votes away in both of those years. Unfortunately, he just couldn't put it together this year. But was it really all Dylan Cease? The whip is really bad. The walks were really bad, no doubt about it. But look at his FIP, 3.56, a full run lower than his actual earned run average. So how much of it was Dylan Cease, and how much of it was just some bad luck? Just some poor defense from the Padres behind him. And I hate using that as an excuse. It's true. Sometimes, though, you just get let down by bad defense. You just have the ball going out of the yard because of wind, because of this, because of that. And sometimes these are the factors you have to look at. So for me, Dylan Cease entering free agency is someone I would definitely be interested in. He's 30 years old. He has about 1,000 career innings, so not too much wear and tear on him. Obviously, we got to mute that. Obviously, not a ton of wear and tear on him. But, this is a guy that, again, kind of that Joe Ryan mold, you can put into that number 2 spot in this rotation and feel pretty comfortable. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I think it was an outlier this season that Dylan Cease performed as poorly as he did. The 4.56 ERA, it just doesn't line up with anything else that he has done for the rest of his career. I mean, 3.47 the year before that. 4.58 with Chicago, but it's the Chicago White Sox. What do you expect? But before that, 2.20 ERA in 32 starts back in 2022 with the White Sox. 3.91 ERA over 32 starts with Chicago that year. And consistently 165 innings, 184 innings, 177, 189, and then again 169 this year. Even in a down season, he probably gets closer to that 170, 180 mark if he wasn't pitching as poorly as he was. So definitely somebody that I would be interested in for sure. We're going to go take a look at his StatCast visuals in a second here. But first, let me go back to the chat. Kev Chada, maybe look into Japanese pitchers and hitters coming to the majors. Can't leave them all to the Dodgers. Well, we do know that guy. I think it's Muriata, something like that. He's a third baseman that is an absolute slugger. Is somebody that the Mets have scouted. It's been noted recently by the media, but all of baseball is basically scouting that guy as well. So we will see. There will be stiff competition for him, but that would be a very, very interesting piece to add, especially knowing that the Mets don't seem to have a third baseman at this point. You could say Brett Beatty, but I'm not super sold on him yet, and I think they might actually be better with him going to second base or even DHing. Anyway, Hakeem the Dream with the super chat, $5. Thank you, Hakeem Dream. I appreciate you, my man. Thank you so much for the super chat. You guys are the best. You guys can leave super chats here, tip the streams. Really appreciate you guys doing that. Helps keep things going here for me. So thank you very much for that. Trey Lindor and Nimmo ASAP. They're both overrated, overpaid, and goofy. Let the kids play. Jet Williams and Clifford are the replacements. So I don't think Lindor is getting traded. I personally don't want that to happen. I think you are never going to find a shortstop that hits 30 homers, steals 30 bases, and plays the level of defense that he does in a good, normal defensive season for him. You're not going to get enough value back that makes this a better team in other areas if you trade away Lindor. I understand how you're feeling. A lot of people don't like how he smiles a lot, even when they're losing, and jokes around with the opponents and stuff like that. I get it. As far as Nimmo, I think he's untradeable. I think the Mets would love to go back in time in 2023 in that offseason and not give Nimmo the contract that they gave him. Now, the numbers at the end of the day weren't terrible. I think he popped 24 home runs, drove in somewhere between 75, 80 RBIs, but he is definitely not the same Brandon Nimmo. Because he is getting a little more home run happy, he is not walking as much. His plate discipline has significantly declined. And maybe the worst of everything, his defense has gotten to be an issue in left field. He is not exactly fleet of foot anymore. He can still run the bases decently well, but he is definitely not helping you out or doing you any favors with his outfield defense in left field. So we are on the hook 5 more years for that contract. I love Brandon Nimmo, but I just don't see any team willing to accept that contract without the Mets paying down a significant portion of it. And at that rate, that is going to obviously lower the return in terms of players or prospects, however that was worked out. So I don't see that happening, but I understand. I do think that Jet Williams and Ryan Clifford will be on the starting roster for the Mets on opening day in 2026. 100%. I believe that. I don't know what's going to happen with Pete. But regardless, I think Ryan Clifford is going to be on the starting roster, whether he is playing first and Pete is DHing, whether Clifford is DHing, or maybe Clifford is even in the outfield and you have Brandon Nimmo DHing. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And then as far as Jet Williams, I think it's going to be an open competition for second base this upcoming offseason or spring training. I think that Jet Williams is going to be in the mix. I personally think and hope that Jeff McNeil is traded this winter. Whether that happens or not, we shall see. But I think it will be an open competition at second base between Jet Williams, between Brett Beatty, depending on how the Mets navigate third base and all the inner workings of this offseason. But there will be every opportunity for those 2 young kids to get a shot, and I do expect them to be on the opening day roster in 2026. Hakeem the Dream, thank you again for the super chat. Really, really appreciate you, my man. Armand Nimmo has no trade clause and is making $20.5 million per year until 2030. No one's taking that contract. Yeah, it does not seem that way at all. I think the Mets are probably just better off keeping him at this point than they are trading him. You're not going to get the return, the value on that trade back. So I think the Mets are essentially stuck with him. Kev Chad already put Jet and Clifford in the majors without earning it. Well, I think they're earning it in with their time in the minor leagues. And I'm going to be honest, I would not be surprised to see Jet Williams, Ryan Clifford, and Carson Bench all on the Mets opening day roster to start 2026. I am not saying they're going to be in starting roles, but I would not be surprised if they are all on the roster. I think, one, David Stearns wants to start to bring up some of these young kids, get some of that athletic ability and versatility and defensive-minded kind of players who all of them are on this team. And then number 2, they're all knocking on the door. They were all at AAA here at the end of the season. So I don't think it's far-fetched that they are going to be on the MLB roster in 2026 and maybe even as early as opening day. Again, I just think it depends on how Stearns navigates the rest of the offseason as well. Madeline Schmidt, hi Tony, miss you, miss my Mets, but this is awesome. You're awesome, Madeline. Thank you so much for joining in. I really appreciate you. I miss our Mets too. Armand Murakami, yes, he's coming over. You read his defense is bad at 30 and would most likely be playing first base, could DH. He's a 25 years old. Okay, well, 25-year-old slugger is definitely something I can work with. You find that guy a position. You either put him at DH or you put him at first base. You hide him any way you possibly can. You find a 25-year-old guy that is an absolute unit of a slugger, you got to take your chances, roll the dice on him. So I don't know if it's going to be that whole posting situation. If it is, I don't know if it counts as an international free agent signing, in which case every team basically has an equal shot if they want to allocate all of their international free agent money, or how that will work. That's how the Dodgers essentially got Roki Sasaki this past offseason. So we will see in terms of Murakami, but definitely someone I'm interested in. Kevchada Jet has already had wrist injuries, needs steroid shots, can't rush him. We'll see on Jet. I have said it before. I don't know if I see it with Jet Williams. He is undersized. Not to say that it's impossible for you to carve out a big league career being on the smaller side, but odds are a little against you, and I just don't know if he's ever going to hit for enough pop at the big league level to make it worth make the Mets worth their while. You know what I'm trying to say. Anyway, it's 4-1. Dodgers with a lead in the 9th inning. They got a runner at second as the Phillies are looking like this is going to be a quick end to the Red October. I don't want to jinx it, but it's looking like it might be that way. Danny Adams, all I know is I hope they keep Pete. Well, that is the elephant in the room, and we will have another live stream here this week talking about Pete Alonso's free agency. We're going to link it to some of the other past free agents for players similar to his profile in years past, and see if we can get to a reasonable extension with Pete Alonso. I personally would love to have Pete back, but under one condition, and that is that he's the designated hitter. And it's not even because I don't think Pete's a bad or a great first baseman. I mean, he is an okay first baseman. He definitely cost the Mets a couple of games here this year down the stretch. No doubt about it. Argue with the wall if you don't believe me. But him going to DH will solve a huge issue that the Mets have had pretty much since the universal designated hitter was instituted in 2020. The Mets have had a revolving door of aging veterans and crap as their designated hitters since 2020. It is time they finally solve that solution, and it has been sitting under their nose for the past 7 years. Pete Alonso at DH, Clifford as the first baseman, or perhaps somebody else you trade for or get in free agency, instantly makes this team better. Now, if you're going to tell me they're going to put Mark Vientos at first base and make Pete the designated hitter, nah, that ain't going to do it. But if you get me a proven first baseman that plays good enough defense and can swat the ball a little bit, and then you put Pete at DH, I think that makes this a much better, more well-rounded team. So we will get into that later on. Thank you for the comment, Danny. Hakeem the Dream, the combo of Lindor, Soto leading the Mets is not a winning mentality in the clubhouse. Lindor got to go. I don't agree with that. I'm going to be honest. I think Lindor is a leader. I do think he should be. Essentially, he's the de facto captain of this team. We saw what he did last year. He always answers the bell when it comes to speaking to the media after tough losses. I don't know the inner workings of the team. I don't know how they, operate in the clubhouse or anything like that, of course, but I believe just from the outset that Lindor looks like a leader and a captain for this team. I could be wrong again, but I don't think that Lindor is the problem. Armand says Mets are not signing Kyle Tucker because they have Nimmo and Soto in the corners. Tucker can't play center. Nimmo can't either at 32. Bellinger could be if he opts out. Yeah, so Bellinger's going to opt out 100%. He is someone I'd be interested with in center field as a stopgap kind of guy until Benj is ready. So that is interesting to me. That gives the Mets an opportunity to maybe DH Nimmo more. There are just so many moving parts for the Mets this offseason. So many different moving parts where if you sign Pete, it completely changes the trajectory and the direction you're going to go this offseason. If you don't sign Pete Alonso, it's going to put you in a complete 180 in the other direction where you're then searching for a first baseman. Or you're going to promote Clifford, but then how are you going to replace Pete's production? Because you can't just assume Clifford is going to come up and produce even close to what Pete Alonso has done for the Mets over the last several years. So there are just infinite amount of ways that the winter can go here for the Mets, and a lot of it definitely does hinge on Pete Alonso, but obviously would love Kyle Tucker. We will see. I don't think he's going to be a fit for this team. It seems like things kind of soured with him in Chicago after a great start. Obviously he slumped and he seemed kind of miserable from things I have read, but could be wrong about that. We will see. Let's see, CT Kid, I hope we keep Pete, but as for Jet, he may be undersized, but don't forget Altuve's undersized as well. We saw what he became of. You never know. Exactly. And so I am not by any means counting Jet Williams out because he is on the more shorter side. He's shorter. He's like 5'7". Okay. Let's just be honest. He's like 5'8". He's about Altuve's height. Not counting him out for that. Just saying odds are a little stacked against him. Let's see if he's got some pop in that bat, though. You know, sometimes you could pack a punch with just a little bit. So nothing against him at all because of his physical attributes. It's just going to maybe be a little bit more difficult for him than it may be for someone of a different stature. So we will see. But CT Kid says, I do hope one or maybe two of these guys, Jet, Clifford, and Benj, work out. Man, we really need some of these prospects to work out because I've said it before, guys. Who is the last Mets prospect that came up and has actually turned into anything? And I say it's Pete Alonso, which is crazy to think because that was 2019. But let's be honest, they brought Jeff McNeil up for a cup of coffee in 2018, and yeah, Jeff won a batting title in 2022. But outside of that, really, Jeff has been a pretty disappointing big leaguer. Then you got Mark Vientos, who last year finally put it all together. This year was a complete disappointment. And then in terms of Beatty, yeah, he ended the season really strong, and we're feeling good about him outside of that injury on the Friday before the end of 2025. But how much can you really trust Brett Beatty? How much can you truly trust him? Because we have seen this so many times before. So I really hope that one, if not all three of Jet, Clifford, and Benj do pan out and become productive big leaguers, because the Mets just have simply failed to produce productive big league position players for a number of years now, and they desperately, desperately need it. So I got a little off track, obviously. So what we're going to do here is just kind of go through these kind of rapid fire. But here's Dylan Cease, who, again, I think he fits the mold of what Joe Ryan is. A guy that you could slot in as your number two with the hopes that Nolan McLean continues to take steps forward toward becoming an ace for this rotation. And then behind him, you got Holmes, Peterson, 3-4. Senga, if he's still on the team, as maybe your 5. And you're feeling a lot better, I think, about next year's rotation. 95th percentile in whiff percentage. I mean, the dude can strike out just about anybody in baseball. Again, the FIP was so much lower, a full run, than his actual earned run average. Could have been park factors out in San Diego. Could have been the defense from the Padres behind him that just didn't do him any favors. I think that Dylan Cease is due for a bounce back. He is expected to be offered a significant amount of money. We will see if that is the case, but he is definitely somebody that I would like to see the Mets target to improve their rotation. And then we're going to go over to one of our key rivals, and that is of the Phillies, Ranger Suarez. So Ranger Suarez has come up and really just been a model of consistency for the Phillies now for a number of years. Started his career as a starter, then transitioned to a reliever, had a ridiculous 2021 season where he mostly did relief work, but also made 12 starts, had a 1.36 earned run average. And ever since then, I mean, the dude just takes the ball, 29 starts, 22 obviously on the lower side, but then 27 last year and 26 this year. A 3.20 ERA this year. The year before that, 3.46. In 2023, over 29 starts, a 3.65 ERA. And over the last 4 years, innings, 155 innings, 125, 150, 157. So a guy that just can go out there, take the ball for you, and basically give you a quality start every time. Anytime I see the ERA 3.4, 3.2, somewhere in that range, it tells me there's going to be days where he's going to go out there and he's going to give you 6 shutout innings. But at very worst, he might give you 6 innings, 3 runs, a quality start, something that the Mets were dead last in 2025 and desperately could have used down the stretch to try to win a couple more games and get into the postseason this year. So he is somebody that I would definitely be interested in. He is 30 years old. So this is going to be somebody that is obviously approaching that territory where you're fearful of how he's going to pan out the rest of his career. But for a 3-year contract, maybe even 4-year contract at say 70 million, 75 million, that is somewhere that I think Suarez is probably targeting. And that is something I would definitely be interested in giving to him. Has just been fantastic coming out of Venezuela for the Phillies. Here are his StatCast numbers. I mean, again, guys, it's pretty simple. The red is very good. The dark red is excellent. So 98th percentile on hard hit percentage, meaning he induces soft contact. Hopefully the Mets will have good enough defense next year around the infield and in the outfield to help him with that. But 6-pitch mix, sinker baller with a changeup, cutter, curve, a 4-seamer, and a slider, and really mixes these in really well. 29% on the sinker, 15% on the 4-seamer, and then the rest of them are really in that 15 to 19% range. His slider is his least used pitch, only 4% of the time. But again, a guy where if we're talking 4 years, if it comes to $80 million, wouldn't you do that for a 30-year-old in Ranger Suarez, a lefty coming off the number of years he's had? Then instead of giving the 2 years, $18 million of average annual value to Frankie Montas this past offseason, unfortunately, it's a sunk cost, and there's nothing the Mets can do about it. Hindsight's 2020, even though we all as Mets fans knew at the time it was a terrible deal, and we were proven right. But that is essentially the same contract the Mets just gave Frankie Montas, except with 2 extra years, and I would absolutely give that to Ranger Suarez to try to improve this bullpen. Let's see, Kevchada. Scott Boras usually takes long to get players to sign. We need to settle first base in December before the market diminishes. Josh Naylor, even with his injury history. Now, Josh Naylor is an interesting one. Lefty bat, gamer, got some power, plays a decent first base. I don't know what the defensive metrics look like compared to that of Pete Alonso's, but definitely somebody that I could see the Mets being interested in a potential pivot if they don't sign Pete, or even if they do sign Pete, but they also bring in Naylor and they split time, first base and DHing. That is definitely something that I would be interested in for sure. Naylor started the year with Arizona, got traded to Seattle, I believe. Yes, that is correct. And they are obviously still playing in the ALDS against the Tigers. So not a bad idea at all, Kevchada. Let's see, who free agents to be do you like in the playoffs? Off the top of my head, I can't think of any free agent to be that are currently in the playoffs. I think that's what your question is, Kev? Let me know before I wrap up here. But yeah, I think that's what you're asking. Players that are in the playoffs right now that are free agents to be, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what you mean. Guys, that takes me to my 4th pitcher here that I would like the Mets to target here in the offseason, and that is Zach Gallen. Now, Zach Gallen's a very tricky case because, like I said in the beginning of this stream, I don't want David Stearns to fall back into that whole mold of resurrection projects, of trying to fix guys that are coming off of down years or just have not lived up to the hype. Zach Gallen at one time absolutely lived up to the hype. This was a perennial Cy Young contender. I mean, finished as the 5th in Cy Young voting in 2023, 9th in 2019, and 3rd in 2023. So this is a guy that has had some of the more successful seasons in Major League Baseball as a starting pitcher, but it was the complete opposite here this year, much like Dylan Cease. 4.83 ERA, and really for most of this year, it was up above 5. It was closer to 5.5 till he had a couple of strong starts to round out his 2025 season. But other than that, let's just go back to last season. As a 28-year-old, 28 starts, 3.65 ERA, over 148 innings. The year before that in 2023 when the Diamondbacks went to the World Series, 3.47 ERA, over 210 innings, and a 2.54 earned run average the year before that where he finished 5th in Cy Young voting, over 184 innings. A career ERA plus of 119. His FIP is 3.65. His earned run average is 3.58, meaning that it's probably very accurate that he is not getting helped out by good defense or significant ballpark factors and good fortune or anything like that. So this is a guy that I'd be interested for the Mets to sign. Again, I'm hesitant because I don't want the Mets to fall back into that routine of trying to fix guys, but I don't know that this is we're trying to fix him kind of situation as much as it is, hey, chalk it up to a bad year. The one concern I do have about that, though, is Zach Allen is 30. So is this just finally all caught up to him? All those innings I just rattled off to you, the 210 innings in 2023 when they went to the World Series. Was that what happened? And that what is finally caught up to his arm? And maybe even going to need surgery any day now. That is something you have to consider. Another thing you have to consider about Zach Allen, he is a Scott Boras client. And while we know that he is probably not going to get a big contract coming off the year he just had, Scott Boras is going to have his witty puns and all of his stupid phrases and metaphors at this year's winter and GM meetings to pump up his players, because that's what he does. That's what a good representative should do. Doesn't mean they're actually worth it. They're going to try to find a sucker for him and give him the contract that really he probably is not worth. But Zach Allen is definitely one of those guys I'd be interested slotting him closer into that 3, though, more into that number 3. And so he would not be a guy that I'm thinking, hey, he's going to solve a lot of our issues the way I think Dylan Cease or Joe Ryan would. Real quick, Kevin Chada says, yes. Okay, so who do I like currently in the playoffs that is a free agent to be? And then you said, how about trading Alvy since he has value and sign Real Muto? No to trading Alvarez, as bonkers as he has driven me over the years. Alvarez finally started to look like the Alvarez we've been hoping he would be for years now. I know he's often injured, but I think you could do much worse than Alvy, and I don't think that's the move. Real Muto is old. He has honestly become a DH more often than not lately. I mean, he did catch more games than DH, but it has been well documented that they have basically forced him to DH more often because they have realized his significant drop-offs when he tries to catch every single day over 162. So Real Muto, I am definitely not interested in. He's actually ironically up at the plate right now with a runner at first and 0 outs with the Dodgers leading 4-1 in the bottom of the 9th inning here, trying to take a commanding 2-0 lead and put an end to Red October ASAP. But Woodruff's agent is not Boras. No, we're not talking about Woodruff. We're talking about Zach Allen. Zach Allen's agent is Scott Boras. But anyway, Kev Chada, guys that stand out to me, actually a couple on the Yankees, I'll be honest with you. I know that they're all kind of going the opposite on him. No, I really like Trent Grisham. I hate him because he's on the Yankees. He drives me crazy, but I think he's could be a solid kind of guy. He's great defensively. They have him in the leadoff spot, which is probably not the best fit for him, but I do like Trent Grisham as one of those kind of role players, not a starter, but as a role player. Absolutely. And honestly, he'd be a better starter in center field than anything the Mets had this season patrolling center field. So Grisham for sure. Bellinger, absolutely. But that one, a little more complicated, a little more convoluted. You got to make him a starter in some fashion. I don't know how they end up doing that. They're going to have to move some pieces around. Real Muto hits a double into left field, and it's second and third with nobody out. Oh, boy. Hopefully the Phillies don't have some magic right here. That would be disappointing. But so Zach Allen, guys, he would be one for sure. And then the last one, and this is more of the pipe dream kind of one, Framber Valdez. So we know Framber Valdez has been one of the better starters for a number of years now for the Houston Astros. I'll just make it quick. No. I like Framber Valdez. I do. I think he's a great pitcher. We saw some weird antics with him and his catcher toward the end of the season. I don't know about him as a clubhouse guy and a culture guy, but from everything I've seen and read, he does not seem like what the Mets need this offseason, not coming off of the season that the Mets just had. Quickly, though, I'll give you the numbers. This year, a 3.66 ERA, 0.30 higher than his career ERA, over 31 starts this year. He had a 3.8 WAR, 187 strikeouts, over 192 innings, so really solid there. But the numbers definitely have went down this year. 2.91 ERA last season, but this year jumps almost a full run. So this clearly was his toughest year of his career outside of 2019 when he really came up and did mostly relief work. And I'm going to be honest with you, at 31 years old, he's looking to cash in finally, first time as a free agent. And I don't want to be the sucker that pays him. I don't think he is the kind of guy you want to bring in as far as locker room and culture. I think that he's going to be asking for a huge contract that he is never going to live up to. So he's a name. He's someone that people recognize. But do I think he's a fit for the Mets? Probably not, honestly. Oh, shit. The Phillies are really doing it, huh? It's 4-3. Oh, boy, this is no good. Oh, Castellano. No, he was out at second. No, they got to review that. We'll see what happens. Let's see. Anything else? I'm thinking Woodruff or Bassett since Boris is not a factor with them. I am not interested in a reunion with Chris Bassett, if I'm being honest. I think he's cooked. We already ran that with him. I liked Bassett while he was here, but I think that ship has sailed. I want the Mets to get younger. I want them to get inning eaters, no doubt about it, but I don't know if he's the guy that I would want to do that with. But guys, look, this was a little shaky here on my end. I'm still kind of getting used to not being able to talk about an actual game. So I'm still working on things here, but we're going to keep doing it here. Guys, I really appreciate everyone tuning in, commenting. Thank you all so much for being a part of the channel here. You guys are awesome and great. And like I said, we're going to try to do this 2, maybe even 3 times a week here moving forward. All Mets offseason news. So if you're not already subscribed, go ahead and do that right now. If you have not left this video a like, go ahead and do that also right now. Really appreciate it. Helps the channel out big time. Trying to get to 3,000 followers here before the end of the week. We are at 2.9 10 or something like that. So really been awesome growing this with you guys, and I appreciate it so much. So that is going to do it for right now. Thank you all once again. Hopefully the Dodgers finish off this win, and hopefully the Blue Jays finish off the Yankees tomorrow, but I will check back in with you guys this week. Until next time though, I am Tony Metro. Stay true to the orange and blue.